If in the market to buy your first car, chances are that maybe you're working with a limited budget, and most probably you are looking at small hatchbacks. There is a car that normally doesn't get the recognition that it deserves in Kenya, and that is the MAZDA VERISA. When I'm looking at the MAZDA VERISA, it's a good car for a first-time car buyer when I'm looking at the ownership cost, reliability, and most importantly, practicality. Welcome to 0 to 6 Motoring once again. My name is Bill Siotori, and in today's episode, I'm going to tell you more about the MAZDA VERISA. So if you've been looking for a MAZDA VERISA review, you are now on the right platform, and I'll advise that you hang around until the end of this video if you want to learn more about this car. 0 to 6 Motoring makes your car ownership journey easy. Basically, if you want to purchase a car, you can check our social media platform, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and you will find car reviews there. If you miss out on one, you can actually call us on the number below or shoot us a message, and we're going to give you information about each car that you're going to ask, how it stacks up against the competition, and what to expect in the car ownership journey easy. When I'm looking at the MAZDA VERISA, this is a compact hatchback which production started back in 2004 and ended in 2015. So basically, it was a car whose production ran for 11 years. So technically, it means if you want to go into the market to purchase a MAZDA VERISA, you'll only buy a local used MAZDA VERISA. There is no way you can buy a foreign used MAZDA VERISA because of the importation rule. So if you want a MAZDA VERISA, the only way you can get into one is by purchasing a locally used MAZDA VERISA. When I'm looking at the MAZDA VERISA, it is a car that is bigger than a Mazda Demio, though they are built on the same platform, but it's bigger and it's boxier. The boxier shape, of course, helps this car, of course, in terms of practicality, because if you can check my headroom, it's something that is really good, and even my knee room is not that bad. So from a practicality element in terms of the space, it is quite spacious. Of course, I'll show you how the rear seats look like and the boot when I pull up somewhere. You can look at this MAZDA VERISA like a hatchback, a boxy hatchback, which is a little bit raised. That's why if you are looking at this car, you realize that it comes with a very good ground clearance. I don't think there are many cars in the market that come with these ground clearance, especially on stock wheels and stock suspension, because this car is running on a 15-inch rims and it's on its stock suspension. But you can see that the ride, the ground clearance is good. Of course, the ground clearance being good does not mean that you should be taking this car off-road, but sometimes once in a while, if maybe you are passing through a road that is not that smooth, this car may not have that problem of maybe scratching the underbelly. In terms of the engine, this MAZDA VERISA comes with mainly one engine choice, which is a 1.5 liter natural aspirated petrol engine. Of course, it is also the same engine you're finding in some generations of the Mazda Axela. This 1.5 liter natural aspirated engine actually makes a 114 brake horsepower and 140 Newton meters of torque. Now that power is sent to the front wheels because the majority of the VERISAs are front wheel drive cars via 4-speed automatic gearbox. There is no manual transmission MAZDA VERISA. In some cases, the MAZDA VERISA can also be found with an all-wheel drive system or a 4-wheel drive system. That's why you'll be seeing the trunks of some variations actually written E, 4-wheel drive, or if you like, electronic 4-wheel drive. So of course, that does not mean that I should be taking the car off-road. It's actually to give you more traction, especially when you need it. How does the MAZDA VERISA drive? The road visibility is pretty okay. For normal usability, this car is decently powered. It's not, of course, something that you can take to the truck, but a 1.5 liter for day-to-day operations, it's something that will do the job pretty well. Even when the car is loaded, as long as you load it legally, maybe 4 passengers plus the driver, those are 5 people, and a small load on the boot, that is what I'll define as a decent loading. The car will not strain to move. So unlike the small cars, something like a Vita, Demio, Honda Fit, which may be struggling, this car is actually pretty okay. And even for the gearbox, while it's a 4-speed automatic gearbox, it's not something that will labor maybe in terms of the driving dynamics, because these days majority of the cars, even for this generation, majority of the cars are around that 2014, 2015 year. For the small hatchbacks, they'll be coming with a CVT gearbox. But this one with a 4-speed automatic gearbox, of course, it's doing its job pretty well. Of course, there is a liability of having a 4-speed gearbox, but I'll be coming into that in a few moments. When the car is loaded, of course, and maybe you want to do an overtaking move, of course, you have to put your foot a little bit down for it maybe to respond pretty well. Of course, that is expected when you are having a 4-speed automatic, and maybe when you are in a you have a natural aspirated engine. Another thing you may also want to learn about this car is that because of its because of its ground clearance and aerodynamics, of course, it displays some signs of body roll. So it's not something that you can drive like a sports car, especially around corners. You cannot describe it as nimble because of that huge body roll. Another thing maybe you may want to learn about this car, which is of course a problem for many cars in this segment, is that in terms of our sound insulation, of course, it can let in a lot of road noise. So that's why you should also be running on the correct rubber or the correct tires. Let's talk something about fuel consumption. Now, the main liability, of course, of having a 4-speed gearbox, I said that one back in time when I was reviewing my Toyota Mark II Grande, is that when you're comparing a 4-speed automatic gearbox versus newer gearboxes or versus CVT transmissions, a 4-speed gearbox has bigger ratios, and that will actually take a toll on fuel consumption. Because for this Mazda Verisa, fuel numbers in this car will be in the region of 13 kilometers per liter. Now, when you're looking at 13 kilometers per liter on a 1500cc car, it may be a little bit on the higher side, because if you drive a 1.5 liter with a CVT gearbox, there is a huge likelihood of registering more figures. But the engineering reason behind that is pretty simple. The four ratios they are a little bit bigger, and now when you compare with a CVT gearbox, which has an infinite number of gears, the transmission in a CVT gearbox is a little bit smoother. In this car, it takes longer for it to shift the gears. That's why it stays at the heavy gears for long, and that's why it now takes a toll on fuel consumption. But on the highway, when the road is quite clear, you can even see this car stretching to even 15 kilometers per liter. But in traffic, of course, the numbers are they have to go down. Now, when you're looking at this car, you can actually see why I was saying that it's a boxy car in terms of the design. And you can actually see what I was saying about in terms of the ground clearance, because you can see that the ground clearance is good according to me. That's why it may not be scratching the underbelly of this car, especially even if you are on bad roads. Now, in terms of the upfront, while a newer generation of the Mazdas have that code or solo motion design language, of course, this one may look a little bit bland, but I don't think it should actually be a big deal. So let me show you how it looks like in terms of the practicality element. Now, this is how I'll be sitting on this second row seater if the driver ahead of me maintains my driving position. So you can see that the amount of knee room is not that bad, and what actually is impressing is the amount of headroom. So technically, that's why I was saying that this is a car that is going to tick that practicality element. So in terms of the boot space, this is how it looks like. So it's not that bad in terms of holding your luggage, and most importantly, down here you actually have a space for a full size spare wheel and your repair kits. You can actually make this more practical, of course, by lowering this second row of seats. And once you do that, the car is now going to be extremely good. So if maybe you have some luggage you want to hold, lowering actually the rear seats makes this car more practical. So in terms of the interior of this Mazda Verisa, of course, I should not be expecting much, but at least it has a volume control buttons on the steering wheel. Of course, the stock radio, the stock infotainment screen that the car comes with may not be that good, so that's why you may need to install an aftermarket one like this one. Another thing is that majority of the Mazda Verisas will be coming with a fabric seats, but this one actually came with a leather seats from the manufacturer. Sometimes they can also come with a half leather seats, but that one also depends on the trim level of the car you get. So in terms of the features, it may not be bringing much to the table, but it's not something that should be surprising you considering the price point of this car, and even the segment where this car or the league where this car plays. So let's talk something about the reliability of this car. A 1.5 liter petrol engine, which is actually natural aspirated, there is not much that is actually going to go wrong with this car. So in terms of reliability, it's not a car that needs a special treatment, let me put it that way. And then this engine with the 4-speed automatic gearbox, it's actually a pretty good powertrain in terms of reliability. So you can actually never go wrong with this 1.5 liter petrol engine here, as long as you just give it a normal routine maintenance. There is not much that actually goes wrong here. Now, in terms of the pricing element, because this is a local used car, or generally when you're going to buy a Mazda Verisa, you're going to buy a local used car, the prices are usually going to depend on the condition of the car. Because if you go online, you can even find a Mazda Verisa, the earlier generation, the first ones are going for as low as even 450, 480, 500,000 shillings. But now it means that the condition of those cars may not be that good. Those are the cars that you buy, and they may still need some money to put them into the shape you want. A car, for instance, that is in a good shape, like the one you are seeing on the video, this one is not going to cost less than 800,000 shillings. And considering that now this is one of the last batches of the Mazda Verisa, of course it has to be pricey. But for a budget of 650,000, 750,000, of course you should get something that should serve you for a while. But if you want an extremely clean unit, of course you have to step up your budget to some good level. So instead of buying the small super mini, something like a Toyota Vitz, Mazda Demio, or something like a Nissan Note, I'll advise that you also add Mazda Verisa into that list, and maybe you check out one before you commit your hard-earned money on the small super minis, because I think it brings much more to the table than the small super minis. So it's something that may really look like value for money, especially when you're looking at something that is spacious, something that is reliable, and most importantly, something that doesn't break the bank when you're looking at even the purchase price. The only challenge you're going to have is that the owners of Mazda Verisas hardly sell them. So it means that if you're going to the market to look for a Verisa, you may need to take your time, or most importantly, you may need to revise your budget to the higher side for you to find a clean Mazda Verisa. Because these days, because these cars are of course no longer in production, you have to depend on the local used market. And now because the owners allow these things so much, of course it means that you're going to struggle to get one that is on sale. So that is a short review of this 2014 Mazda Verisa. In case you have any other question about this car, you can shoot us a message on our platforms, or check out 0to60motoring.com. If you want us to scout a clean car for you, you can always reach out to us on 0to60motoring.com socials. All right, guys, I think that is enough for today. I'll see you on the next one on 0to60 Motoring.